Racist cop arrests 8-year-old black girl in a wheelchair on the street, unaware her father is a police captain. Have you ever witnessed an act so heartless, so unjust, that it leaves you speechless? Imagine seeing a helpless little girl in a wheelchair, minding her own business, when suddenly she's surrounded by flashing lights and handcuffs. What could this innocent child have possibly done? And yet, it's happening right before your eyes. This isn't just a story about an arrest. This is about prejudice, abuse of power, and the consequences that follow. It was a bright Saturday afternoon, and 8-year-old Amina, a vibrant, joyful girl with beautiful braids, was sitting in her wheelchair on the sidewalk. She had just finished playing at the park with her friends, laughing, enjoying life the way any child should. But things took a sharp and horrifying turn when a patrol car pulled up beside her. A white police officer stepped out, his eyes cold, his face hard. What could he want with a little girl in a wheelchair? Without warning, he approached her. "You're coming with me," the officer growled. Amina's heart raced. Confused, she looked around for help, but there was no one nearby. Why would a cop want to arrest an 8-year-old in a wheelchair? Could it be because of the color of her skin? This question echoed through the minds of anyone who witnessed the scene. Would you believe it if I told you this cop didn't even ask her name? He didn't care that she was a child, didn't care that she was in a wheelchair, and certainly didn't care that she was innocent. He saw a young black girl and assumed the worst. Without another word, he grabbed the handles of her wheelchair, making her whimper in fear. "You're under arrest," he said coldly. But for what? What could an 8-year-old girl in a wheelchair possibly have done? Amina, with tears in her eyes, begged, "Please, sir, I didn't do anything." She tried to tell him her father was nearby, but the officer wasn't interested in listening. Why do some people refuse to hear the truth when it's right in front of them? He pushed her chair towards his police car, ignoring her pleas. People on the street began to stop, watching in shock. How could this be happening? Is this really the world we live in, where a little black girl can't even sit on the sidewalk without being harassed? As the officer manhandled Amina's wheelchair, the tension in the air grew thick. People whispered to each other, unsure whether to intervene. Would you have the courage to step in if you saw this happening? Just then, a man appeared in the distance. His face was tight with anger, his steps quick and determined. This was Captain Benjamin, Amina's father, an experienced police captain with over 20 years on the force. He had been just a few blocks away, responding to a call, when he saw the scene unfolding. What would you do if you saw your child being mistreated by someone sworn to protect them? "Excuse me, officer," Benjamin said as he approached, his voice calm but filled with authority. The officer didn't even glance his way. "Would you recognize a police captain if you saw one, or does prejudice blind people from seeing what's right in front of them?" "I'm talking to you," Benjamin said again, his tone sharper. The officer turned, glaring at the man who dared interrupt him. "I'm handling police business here," he snapped. But how much can someone handle when they can't even see the mistake they're making? Captain Benjamin's eyes fell on his daughter, who was now crying silently in her wheelchair. The sight was enough to make his blood boil. Can you imagine the helplessness of seeing your own child in such a situation? But Benjamin knew better than to lose his cool. He walked closer, showing his badge. "I'm Captain Benjamin. This is my daughter," he said, his voice low but firm. The officer's face paled. He stammered, "She's your daughter? But she looks like I thought." Why do people always assume the worst when they see a black child? Why do they jump to conclusions based on skin color instead of facts? Benjamin didn't let him finish. "You thought what? That she was a criminal? That an 8-year-old in a wheelchair was some kind of threat?" His voice rose, drawing attention from the crowd. "How dare you lay a hand on her? How dare you assume she's guilty of anything?" The officer was visibly shaking now, realizing the massive mistake he had made. How many lives have been ruined because of assumptions like these? But instead of taking responsibility, he mumbled, I didn't know she was your daughter, sir. I'm sorry." Does an apology mean anything when it comes after such damage has already been done? Benjamin's jaw tightened, and his fists clenched at his sides. You didn't know because you didn't care to ask. All you saw was her skin, and you decided that was enough to make her a suspect. I don't want your apology. I want accountability. By now, the crowd had grown. Phones were out, and people were recording. Isn't it sad that we need to capture these moments on camera just to ensure justice? The officer, now sweating under the weight of his mistake, glanced around nervously. He could feel the eyes on him, the judgment, but Captain Benjamin wasn't done. "What's your badge number?" he demanded, pulling out his phone to take a photo of the officer. The officer hesitated, but Benjamin's eyes flashed. Now, the badge number was given, and the crowd murmured in approval. What happens when those who are supposed to serve and protect are the very ones causing harm?
If you've watched this far, comment which country you're watching from and leave a 100 in the comment section because you are type of person that likes to finish what they started. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to get notified whenever we drop new videos. Now back to the story.
Benjamin turned to his daughter, kneeling beside her. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now." Amina wiped her tears, but the fear still lingered in her eyes. How long will it take for her to forget this traumatic experience? With the officer standing awkwardly nearby, Benjamin straightened up. "I'm filing a formal complaint," he said, loud enough for the crowd to hear. "This man will face consequences for what he's done. But will it be enough? Will there ever be true justice for the countless innocent lives affected by racial profiling?" The officer, now fully aware of the gravity of the situation, stammered again. "Please, sir, I didn't mean to. I didn't know." But Benjamin wasn't having it. "You didn't know, and that's the problem. You judged my daughter based on her skin color. You didn't see her as a little girl, as someone's child, as a human being. You only saw what you wanted to see. How many more innocent people will have to suffer before things change?" As Benjamin wheeled his daughter away from the scene, the crowd parted, some applauding, others shaking their heads at the injustice they had just witnessed. This wasn't just another case of racial profiling. This was a reminder of how deep the problem runs in society. And the question remains, when will we finally start seeing each other for who we truly are, rather than through the lens of prejudice? As they left, the officer stood there, alone and humiliated, knowing full well that this moment would haunt him. But the real question is, will he learn from it? And will those watching learn as well? This story highlights the impact of racial profiling, the abuse of power, and the heartbreaking consequences that arise when prejudice clouds judgment. Will this event spark a change in how people are treated, or will it just become another forgotten incident? The responsibility lies with us all.